2007, vitamin D mediated human antimicrobial activity against tuberculosis is dependent on the induction of Cathelicidin. And I just went through the process there. So, papers on this, no one cares. And they did an actual test, an experiment as part of this paper. And vitamin D, you can see going higher here, drove up Cathelicidin. And then the other enzyme that shut things off went up after there was an appropriate concentration of cathelicidin, and the 125D3 receptors were shut off. So it's amazing stuff. And it's just so important for the immune system. And I know Dr. David Grimes, I interviewed him in late 2020, and he implored people, if you are going to take this new product, right, this new vaccine, okay, I wouldn't, but if you're going to do it, please get your vitamin D level up before you do, or you could have any amount of autoimmune or clotting issues. And I guess Dr. Grimes was proven entirely correct. So I won't go through these, but they just show again and again low vitamin D correlates with everything terrible, and high vitamin D correlates with minimal terrible things. Colon cancer is a killer, and mortality over 32 nanogram. These are fair comparative studies. You know, look at the rate of colon cancer versus below 20, and that's below 20. A lot of people are below 10. And you can see the straight line that if everyone was at even a reasonable level of vitamin D from the correlation, you could have a 55% reduction in colon cancer, one of the biggest killers. Breast cancer is the same. Now, it's not saying vitamin D is magically stopping the cancer, but if everyone was up in the 50s, like carnivores and low carb people, yes, you'd have massively lower cancer. Okay? And breast cancer, I said, was the same, similar thing, always the same. And I forget what that one is. Dose response gradient or risk of breast cancer according to 25-OHD. Yeah, you're talking about just hugely lower risks. Here's mortality, chalk and cheese, really. And that's only over 25 nanogram per mil, right? I always stay above 50. So's my wife. And I won't go through the rest of the multiple sclerosis, but you can see it versus sun exposure in this study, matched cases and controls, sun exposure higher, dramatically lower MS. And actinic damage is better. And I love this one. They measure with a microscope your skin, and they get a direct, say you're lying about the sun you got. Well, this actually looks at your skin and is able to measure the amount of slight sun damage you got in your skin and truly see if you got a lot of sun. And the relationship is even more powerful. People who have actinic skin damage from the sun, I don't mean that's bad, it's just microscopic evidence of more sun. You've got nearly 10 times lower multiple sclerosis in the people who have proven more sun exposure. So quite dramatic. And it was exposure, I think, ages 6 to 10 and 10 to 16, because they were looking at it as exposure in youth is a bigger determinant than exposure later, which would make sense. It heads off the future problem of MS. Influenza, of course, and corona, huge seasonal sinusoidal curves. One factor, not the whole factor, one factor is vitamin D. And the factor they tell you that's complete BS. Oh, in the winter, people are inside and closer to each other and it spreads. Duh. Guess what? In the last 30, 40 years, all winter long, people are indoors, and all summer long, they're indoors in their corporate jobs, right? 40, 50 hours a week. There's no real major difference. So that's not the reason. The reason is vitamin D and human immune system cycles, and viruses have different activity levels depending on the UV.